You're going to have to go pile that one.
Very high.
First of all, let me just tell you what a pleasure and it's truly an honor for me to be here in your beautiful city of Laredo and back in Texas. I have a daughter who lives in Houston, and her and her husband have 3 little children, our grandchildren. So I get a chance to kind of do a double visit. But I'm here because of my dear friend. Congressman Hemingway is someone that we all respect, we all know, and we call him our friend. Henry crosses both sides of the aisle very easily to talk to everybody in a very friendly Laredo way, if you know what I mean. And I think that makes it pretty special. To Mike and to all of you here at the Holding community, God bless you. I'll say something about that later because it really touches me, what you all have done, giving of yourself. I want to say something about the Border Patrol. I was able to see like 3 branches of Border Patrol working in conjunction, and it made such a difference to watch them, how they coordinate and the work that they do, that I would have never imagined how in-depth this is and how committed they must be to do this type of work. And also knowing what Laredo is, a strategic economic port for us. And I mean a port, a land port for us. It's unbelievable. The amount of economic activity here. I mean, I look at the trains, I looked at the trucks, I flew over, I was on the river to see what you all deal with on a day-to-day basis. In 2013, we did an immigration bill and the Senate passed it. I was part of that, and I come from West Virginia, one of the least diverse states in the nation. There's not a lot of mix, if you will. We have very little immigration. So the only thing that the people, my constituents, will know is what they see on television, is what they see by our reporters about what side of the aisle they may be reporting from, pro or con. To see the human element and see it up close and personal, to be able to talk to people just a month ago that came here to Mike, to you all at the community center here, to see how that kind of changes their life and they feel so much safer. But they have said, and we're in talking to them in depth, Henry and I were talking to them and asking questions about how they came, how they got here, how much it cost to get here, bringing a little child, and everyone knows the rules. The criminal element knows the rules better than I think most of us in America know. They prey on that. That's their livelihood. And they're preying on human suffering, which is intolerable, should be to all of us. How can we prevent that from happening? First of all, the wonderful country that we have here, the largeness of our country, and the economic might that we have. And we should be able to go into Guatemala, into Honduras, into Central America, and protect the people that need protected there. We should be able to go through the process of the asylum process of vetting them and doing all of the things that are necessary before they come here. It would be safer. It would be much more humane. It would be much more cost effective for each one of them, the sacrifices they make. It's something that we should be doing. How is that going to happen? Well, we're going to have to be what some people might interpret as being very difficult, very strong, very, very tough. And by being tough, we're going to be tough on crime. We're not going to allow crime to prosper on the backs of people who are from the human suffering and trying to get to this country under any condition. That's not going to continue. We can't let it. So I'll go back to Washington. I'll be able to speak to the president, the same as Henry will. We'll be able to speak to our colleagues and explain to them it is beyond time, past time, to do immigration reform. Immigration reform should be a pathway to citizenship. People that have been here, they might have come here the wrong way, but they came here for the right reason. They've been here, they've been productive. We have children that came here that have no other home but America. There should be a pathway for that for our dreamers. And there should be basically the security of our border using all the technology that we have available. We have the most technological advances ever made before. I've just seen your tower and your radars and all of that scanning. So much different than what we had 10 years ago. All of this can be done and we can protect that. And the people coming here will be basically vetted in their own countries, coming for the right reason. If that means a moratorium for 90 days to stop everything, to say, take a breath, let's make sure that we put this on the highest priority that we have for the human element that we should all be concerned about. So I look at how you should do this and how you can do it. You can't do it unless both sides are talking. Henry and I come from the central part of our party. We are the centrist, the middle. We say we are it's not the popular middle anymore, and it's not the crowded middle anymore, but we are the middle. And that's where you get things done, you know. And we come from the Democratic side of the aisle. Our friends come from the Republican side. We just talked to John Cornyn, dear friend of mine, and him and Henry are very close, do a lot of work together. So this can happen. Common sense can prevail. And that's what we're hopeful for. That's what we're working on. So we're going to continue basically to take what we learned today, what we feel that we have seen today, and take it back home. A lot of our colleagues come to the border, but they don't come as much to Laredo as they might go over into where the children's shelters are. That's the one that tugs at your heart. I understand that. But think of all the criminal elements that preyed on those kids to get here. Think of all the sacrifices their families made. We should not put them in harm's way. That should not happen. So we need to look at some of the pieces of legislation we've had and some of the rules we've had before that have worked, some that haven't worked, but in the long run, how do we protect people? How do we secure our borders? How do we make sure that we're giving the treatment basically as human beings? I've always said this, my wife and I got very much involved, and we call the 5 promises. A lot of you have heard about the 5 promises, but it's worth repeating because the 5 promises is something that every adult should make. But we're all children of God. I don't care how old you are, we're a child of God. But this is basically for the children. And every person, every child should have a loving, caring adult in their life. Unfortunately, that's not always the biological parents. Might be you, might be right here, what we're saying. Every child should have a safe place where harm cannot enter. Not always the home, not always the home country either. So that's something we should be striving for. Every child should have nutrition in their life. That doesn't always happen, not unless there's someone willing to help feed. Every child should be taught a livable skill. Every child should be taught a livable skill. That's why we put so much emphasis on education. And the 5th promise is one you can't teach. This promise you can't teach. Mike, you all can show it. Every child, the 5th promise is every child should be to grow up to be a loving, caring adult and give something back. They won't know that unless they see that, unless they experience it. And you're seeing it right here. You're seeing it right in Laredo. I've seen it all over Laredo today, Henry. But basically people giving of themselves and basically contributing, trying to give some bit of kindness back in someone's life. Who knows? One of these little children we saw here that came here with their parents could be someone growing up to be a loving, caring person and making sure they're continuing that tradition. So I'm proud to be here with my friend, Congressman Henry Wayar, and it's someone I admire, someone I respect, someone I communicate with. We understand each other. And now I can go back to the Senate because this is going to be something we're going to deal with, whether they want to deal with it or not. We did in 2013. We sent it over to the House. Henry was in the minority at that time. The majority party, being the Republican Party, didn't take the piece of legislation up, and it was a good piece of legislation. It really was. It had a pathway forward. It took care of dreamers, but also it secured our borders. And all those things need to be done to have a country such as ours. So with that, I want to say thank you all for allowing me to come. Thank you all for the hospitality today. I know what real tacos taste like now. I was just having limitations up until I got to Laredo, I can tell you. Anyway, it's just been a really, truly an educational opportunity, an eye-opener for me to understand it better. Words, as they say, pictures worth 1,000 words. And let me tell you, being in presence, being here is worth 1,000,000 words for me to be able to see exactly what is happening and what we can do to hopefully relieve this. So with that, Henry, whatever, is there people having questions?
Yeah.
I
know we got Julia here from the Laredo Morning Times, but I think we got about 70 media folks. I'll let Alexis take care of
Alexis,
this.
you tell us what to do.
You tell us what.
I do have the first question. This is for you, Senator Manchin. You mentioned allowing asylum seekers to apply to their home country. Would you require asylum seekers to do so, or otherwise to return to the Remain in Mexico policy?
Can you give us a name and what media they're with?
This is from Saxon.
Well, first of all, I understood that's what that was stopped as far as the Mexicans, being the Mexican country, that they were seeking asylum in Mexico. If that's what we need to do immediately until we're able to get to the countries that have the safe havens. But to me, the ultimate thing would be is asylum seekers in their own countries. They should not have to be preyed upon to come to Mexico in order to try to get into the United States. They should stay in Guatemala. They should stay in their own home countries where they're coming from, most of it, and be basically vetted there to find out if truly asylum is something that they qualify for and are able to be transported to our country safe and not being preyed upon. So I would say that that's the most, to me, the most priority, highest priority we would have. I said this, many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, we saw what an epidemic that domestic violence was in our country. And at that time, we decided to do something about it. We put domestic shelters in almost every community in America because we were going to determine to protect those that were basically seeking safety. We can do the same in the countries, our neighboring countries, not that far from us, on the same continent. I don't know why that can't be done. That's what my priorities would be.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon. My name's Ashley Soriano. I'm with KPNS in Laredo. So I know that each party tends to have their own argument on each side, but I'm going to ask you guys what I asked your colleagues on the other side of the aisle.
Sure.
And that's, well, I have two questions here. Is it really truly any one person's fault? Some blame the current president, some blame the previous administration. Additionally, with MPP arrivals that came through Laredo recently the other day, some are claiming that